Welcome back to Final Fantasy Ultra Champion Edition. We are going to be finishing up the Gurgu Volcano today. Last time we tackled the first couple of floors, we cleared out the B2 level of treasure. I went ahead and went back to town to resupply, restock, etc. And so now we're going to be running right on through B2 and on into B3 and beyond. So here is B2. All of these treasures, again, have been taken. You'll notice me taking the lava path quite a bit. And that's simply because you don't run into random battles when you're in lava. And if I remember correctly, you don't advance your step counter when you're on damaging tiles. So not only do you avoid getting battles, but you hold that off longer when you do have to run on non-damaging tiles. So you just have to be careful that you're managing your hit points correctly. And again, that's something that's a lot easier when you do have access to the heal staff. If you did make the trip to the Castle of Ordeals in the vanilla version, again, this game being a totally different experience than the vanilla version, I'm not assuming anything. So I'm going to go into B3. B3 and beyond. This might be going farther down to B4. The steps go down and then back up, so that the path is rather convoluted, but it doesn't really matter. Most of these floors are just pretty barren, just kind of big, empty expanses that are meant to just kind of drain you a little bit. There's another floor that has a good amount of treasure in it further on. So you have two main treasure floors. You've got the B2 floor, then you have another one, a couple of floors, a couple of staircases beyond that. There's a little bit better treasure in the lower floor, and there's a handy place to do some heal grinding, or just some level grinding once you do have the heal staff, where you have two chests next to each other, both guarded by the Agama type enemies, the red lizards. I think I've yet to see that enemy down here, so my guess is that it either appears later in the dungeon, or maybe the red lizard has been replaced with something else, with another kind of enemy. So these cure potions are very helpful. It's much better in this game. The heal potions are much better. They heal about 100 hit points. And, of course, are much more expensive. They cost 250. Now, this treasure room is similar to the one in the vanilla version in terms of where it's placed and what's up here. And I happen to know from exploring a little bit that there is a possible red dragon battle here. And I believe there is also one in the vanilla version that guards the flame sword, I think is the weapon that's up here, is the notable treasure. Now, the red Ds have been significantly buffed, as have most major enemies. They're also one of the two types of enemies that, according to the very hacker of this work, are inescapable. Dragons and the Mind Flayer type enemies. There's Ice 2, does good damage to the fire enemies. We can see the dragon seems to have pretty high magic resistance. Ice 2 not doing anything, any kind of damage to write home about. Now, the Shell spell works as Aether, A-Lit, and A-Ice. It defends against the three main elements, and then there is other spells later that can defend against some of the other elemental attacks coming in. But Shell is very important. I'm glad that the elemental resistance has been worked into one spell, and I've seen that in a couple of different hacks where they forget about taking up spell charges or spell slots with A Fire, A Ice, and A Lit. So the Inferno move, without my elemental protection, could be doing up to about 4 times what it's been doing there, so well over 100 per. Although he got pretty lucky on that last one, 70-something, 72, I think. So still not toothless, but I do want to preserve some of my spell charges because I don't know what's going to be coming ahead of us. I suspected that there would be this dragon down here. In the vanilla version, there's also one more protected square by the dragon, and that's in front of the flame armor on the final floor. But the red dragon in the vanilla version, I think there's a small section where it can appear as a random battle. I believe there's maybe one floor or one set of floor tiles where you can see them randomly. And that's always bad luck when you do run into them as a random battle, because you've got to fight a couple other ones. But I don't know what other kinds of items may be protected by red dragons, so I'm going to try to preserve those. Also, I'm going to try to preserve my castings of Shell. my elemental attack. So the drawback of having the all elemental protection spell in just one spell is that it's a higher level, so you have fewer of them. If we were just talking about me casting a fire, well, I would have quite a few more charges of a fire because it's a level 2 or 3 spell as opposed to a level 4 or 5 spell. And I could tell that the hit points have been greatly increased because I've done far more damage to this red dragon than the vanilla red D can handle. And there's another 100, few hundred more there. But you can tell that the defense stats on the dragon are good for both magic and for physical attacks. The silver axe, now that is notable, and a nice chunk of gold. The silver axe is a very notable weapon. It cost 20,000 back in Crescent Lake. So that is a huge chunk of money I've saved myself, and I can sell my steel axe now and just pocket that profit. So rather than being down 10,000 or 20,000 minus what I can sell my steel axe for, I've got the weapon, and I can sell my steel axe and just pocket that profit. And again, I'm going to be running from these zombies because I'm going to try to save as much of my healing power as I can. And this is the dungeon where I'm starting to realize, I'm starting to learn that even though I have a pretty defensive-minded party with quite a lot of healing in their pocket, I'm still going to have to start, now at this point, buying some more cure potions. There's a silver plate. Now that could be equipped by my Viking or my Paladin. I'm going to throw it on the Viking. But that means that my Paladin gets to step up from the iron to the steel plate. And it's kind of a choice between where you want your Viking and your Cleric, because the Cleric can get a higher absorb rating because they can equip shield with it. But I've noticed that their evasion, their natural evasion to escape attacks is lower than the Vikings, and of course their hit points are slightly lower, although it's not all that much right now. Maybe that amplifies later in the game. Maybe it gets even closer as the levels increase. We will see. So for right now, though, the Viking seems to be a little bit better choice up there because of the higher evasion. Although I think the Cleric could be just fine in that second position. I think the Cleric could do just fine up there. Absorbing all of that extra damage, where the Viking is kind of just avoiding some of that damage with its slightly increased evasion. And again, I'm taking the lava tracks as much as I can. Now, this is interesting because we have what looks like a warp tile, also 2 chests. Now, this is where I think we'll have to make a decision in terms of what we're going to do. Are we going to take the warp tile out? Are we going to get out of dodge, as it were? Now, I do have access to the exit spell, so of course it's okay for me to I can get out anytime. I don't need to use that warp tile, but if I was using a party that did not have exit, it would be nice to know I have that option. Now here we run into another red dragon, another red D, and then of course 2 fire elementals, which seems to be the encounter set of this particular trapped square. And the plan's going to be the same. I'm going to use Shell to protect myself from the fire elemental attacks of the dragon, the Inferno move, which kind of acts like the cremate ability in the vanilla version, just an all-targeting fire elemental attack. This is my last casting of Ice 2. And this is also, that's the spell level where my haste was, so a decision there, I could have thrown haste on the Viking, but I wanted to maybe start making some inroads on getting rid of those fires, since I'm protected from most of the fire elemental stuff of the red dragon. And now I just have Ice 1s remaining, though, unfortunately, because I did use a couple of Ice 2s on the other battle. And here's the shield spell that will just help on the physical attacks, not so much on the elemental attacks. The shell spell will just about quarter the damage from the Inferno move. So imagine that doing up to about 4 times more damage than you saw, between 2 and 4 times more damage. And so after this fight, which is it's pretty straightforward now that I'm protected, after this fight we'll have to make a decision in terms of this other chest, because there is another chest right below this one, and it's very possible that it is also protected by a red dragon, and I'm going to have to decide if I have the resources to take on another red dragon fight. I can already tell that I am not going to be able to take on KARY with what I have here. But looking ahead, I will use the magic of video editing to avoid anyone watching this having to watch me retrace my steps all the way back to town and all the way back down to the dungeon. Just a look ahead on that, so don't run away. But after this, I'll have to make a choice. There is one of the fires gone, and there is the dragon gone, so this one's going to be a win. There we go, the Viking takes it out. So now the question is, what is this one protecting? We did get the silver axe before from the first red dragon, and there's the silver hammer. So that's another nice upgrade. Of course, not as good as the silver axe was, but it does get me kind of a double upgrade, because just like in the armor department, the cleric is one step down in terms of equipment level. So whenever I get an upgrade for one character, my cleric gets a hand-me-down of the previous level. So my cleric gets to step up from iron to steel, just as the cleric did when my Viking picked up the silver plate armor. My cleric got to upgrade from iron plate to steel plate. And here's why I'm just looking. I do have one more shell with me, so I decide to risk it, and no dragon battle there. So thankfully we get our cure potion. And I'm going to forego the warp tile, and I'm going to go down to the next floor. Now, through the magic of video editing, as I went down to the last floor here, I did go back to town and restock and replenish and work my way back down. So when you saw this floor load up, that is with a party that had restocked. I'd gone back to town, sold some things, bought a few extra healing items, and worked my way back down. So you'll notice my spell charges have been replenished, although I did have to use some to get back down here again. So that's why the numbers are different, but just to save time and allow you to see more of this dungeon. Now, I'm going to thoroughly explore this floor. Normally, I probably would just run for KARY, but I do happen to know from the README that there is another spellcasting ring somewhere in this dungeon, and it would just make sense for it to be down here on this floor in one of the spokes of this last floor. The setup of this floor is very similar, if not identical, to the vanilla version, where you do have several kind of their spokes coming out from the central staircase. In the vanilla version, KARY is waiting down in the southwest spoke. And there are some not very notable treasures in a couple of the other spokes. There is the flame armor in the straight west spoke. And I visited that room, and the chests are not there. So there is no flame armor in this game, because there are no elemental or protective armors in this game. You have to use spells to get your protections from elements and statuses. But the candles were still there. The candles kind of funnel you down into that treasure chest and force you to fight a red dragon battle. That's protecting it. I think there's also an Agama battle protecting the entrance to where the candles are. So, but I'm looking for the Spellcasting Ring. That should be somewhere in this dungeon, and again, I'm surmising that it's going to be down here. So we're going to look through all of these spokes. Nothing in there. And again, in the vanilla version, I just grab the flame armor, and then I go right down to KARY. I don't worry about these other ones, because I think the only treasure is just some not very good armor and some gold. But I'll take that nice chunk of gold I got from that top room. This is not a protected battle. This is just a regularly scheduled fight. This is a protected battle. And it's another red D, as you can see. And another fire. So now I have 3 castings of shell. So I will go ahead and use one here. And I'll use an Ice 2 charge, because I'm looking to save at least one haste for the KARY battle. But I'm okay using one Ice 2 charge for this fight. But I'm looking ahead to the KARY battle, and I'd like to cast haste and as many tempers as I can on my Viking. And I'd like to save a shell with my cleric there, so that we can protect ourselves from any fire elemental attacks that KARY does throw at us. And then just kind of hang on and see who wins the battle of attrition. And with a party like this, I have a feeling I stand a fair chance against KARY. Although I am running a little bit low on healing, and this is the part of the game where I'm starting to realize that even with a party with as much healing as this party has, I'm going to start needing to bring in more cure potions into dungeons, because until this point I've been able to keep my party members healthy just with my spells, which of course are free. They don't cost 250 gold each. But when you work in damaging tiles and a lot of surprise attacks and enemies that are a little bit harder to run from anyway, you start to lose a little more health, and it doesn't help when you are kind of poor, as I am in this game. So you're going into these dungeons with your armor at a step down from where you probably could be or should be if you were stopping to grind up for all the gold. But I think that's the point of this game. Actually, I know that's the point of this game because I've chatted with the designer of this game about that. You are not supposed to be able to come into a town and buy everything you need. You're supposed to have to make tough choices. And it's paid off for me in this one. I did not have to buy any of our new armor. It's all been waiting for me down here. So I'm hoping that that trend continues, that when I get to a town, I won't have to spend every penny that I have on equipment. I can pick it up in the next dungeon as long as I'm careful about it. Now, there is a spellcasting ring, the Temper Ring, and as the name suggests, I'm guessing that it casts the spell Temper. Now, I'm thinking about who to give it to, because the Bind Ring, lowers the evasion of an enemy. I believe it targets all enemies, but I've used that on my my paladin, or sorry, my cleric, when I've needed to just use something for the cleric during a round. Something to keep the cleric busy. With the Temper Ring, I believe is a single targeting only, and I believe it's self-targeting only, so my paladin is really my best choice there, because I don't want my Viking wasting actions in trying to buff himself up with Temper. I would much rather have my Sage buffing up my Viking with Temper and having my Viking just swing wildly every single round. My Paladin, who doesn't do very much damage, but still often is an attacker in most battles anyway, is a good choice for that Temper Ring, because if there's going to be a battle that's going to last a couple of rounds, the Paladin could temper himself up a couple of actions and then maybe deliver a kill shot or two, rather than swinging kind of a weaker hammer for a couple of rounds. Here's another battle with the Mind Flayer type enemies. So inescapable, so we've got to fight this one. Luckily, the Viking can take them out in one hit. They kind of line up with the narrative of most Mind Flayers in that they can do devastating things to your mind with their psionic powers, but their bodies are rather squishy. As it suggests, their name suggests, they are squid-type things with cephalopod-like bodies. So they're applying a lot of annoying statuses, including mute status, which is interesting because my Bolt 2 spell failed, and my Temper spell failed from the Temper Ring because I didn't realize I had Mute on me, because this game is only meant to display one status element on your character at a time, so if you have multiples, you have to just kind of watch the bottom of the screen when it's applied. And when your respawn rate is turned up to 8, they flash pretty quickly, so it's very difficult to know when you're going to have those extra statuses. You've got to watch and read carefully because they flash by fast. So here's a battle with 4 fires. I have not seen this encounter set yet, this particular enemy table of 4 fires. I've seen 1 and 2. I'm guessing it's a different enemy table, and thankfully it was also escapable, just like the 1 and 2 fire enemy encounter numbers were. I don't know, how much that's been changed in this one, because the README doesn't show all of the changes that have been made to this game in terms of the deep technical things. You have to just kind of surmise those on your own. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to get prepared for KARY here, and I'm just checking my, using my cure spells. And I'm already, you can see, running low on healing spells and my cure potions. I only have just a couple of healing potions left. So we're going to land short of getting everybody fully healed before this battle starts. But the strategy is going to be pretty basic on this one. I'm just going to apply the shell spell in the first round to protect against any of the elemental stuff that KARY's going to throw at me, and I have 2 charges at that level, so I'll have 1 for shell and 1 for cure 3. After that, the Paladin won't be able to do very much. And for offense, I've got the Haste spell. I have 1 charge at level 4 for Haste. And I also have 2 charges of Temper. So those are all going to go on my Viking. That is the plan. My Paladin can temper himself up a little bit. So no problems there. There it is, the Tinder that disturbed the sleep of KARY. Yes, indeed, we are that Tinder. And as is kind of cool with the Fiend fights, when you select fight or when you select a target, you don't have to select an enemy target. It just goes right to it, which kind of adds to the gravity of these battles. But now my plan is totally blown up in my face at the first action that KARY takes. She does it before I can even get any of my defenses off. She hits Sulla, my Viking, with Fire 2. And so now it's back to the drawing board because I don't have enough offense as I stand to take down this boss. There are not enough spell charges left in my Sage to bring down what is surely a 4-digit, maybe 5-digit, who knows, hit point total for KARY here. If this was the vanilla version, I'd still have enough to take her down because she just has a few hundred hit points. But of course she's going to have a lot more than that in this. So now my Paladin, Esper, is going to be my primary damage dealer with the Silver Hammer. And I'm going to just do the best I can to protect myself from what KARY's going to throw at me. Now Shell is already up, so any elemental stuff that KARY throws at me is going to be defended. Shield 2 is going to help us with her physical attacks because KARY, we kind of forget about this with KARY, but she does have 6 hits when she makes an attack. Each one doesn't do a ton of damage, but I mean she has 6 chances for crits, which is unfortunate. So I'm going to have to really, really defend as best I can against that. And as long as she gets 6 hits and 6 damage on my Paladin up there, who has the best armor that I can pick up in the game and the best shield that I can pick up in the game, silver and silver, we could be okay in this one. Now I'm just going to do the best I can to do as much damage as I can with those other characters. I have very little healing left. I have a couple of heal spells left on Esper, and I have 1 casting of Cure 3 left on T-Hawk. So I'm just going to have to go all out. I'm going to cast Fire 3, even though I know that KARY's going to resist it. There is no such thing as absorbing elements in this game. So the Fire 3 just does 120 something. So KARY resisted it big time. Of course, that spell should do a lot more damage, but at least it was something. And but if I can do about 200 or so damage per round with my Paladin, that could whittle down a 4-digit total without too much trouble. So I'm just hoping now that I have enough resources and enough healing to keep me alive, and that I get good luck with KARY's routine. If she starts hitting crits on my other characters, or if she starts really spamming that Fire 2 spell over and over and over again, we're going to be in trouble. Now, I noticed that KARY casted Purge on herself before, and that's notable because in the vanilla version, KARY is actually susceptible to the status element, so you can kind of famously attack KARY with some things you can't use against most bosses. Like, you can hit KARY with Fear and actually make KARY run away from the battle, which is always fun to do, but one of the fiends runs away, escapes you. You can also, I think, hit her with a kind of a low percentage chance to mute at this point in the game, so you can kind of really take away KARY's attacks if you can land that mute spell. I didn't save any of those charges, so I don't get a chance to try them here in this battle, but the fact that she uses Purge suggests that she is still susceptible to status, which I think is a very cool addition to this hack. So well done on that. Now there's a big crit on Zonk. Zonk wasn't contributing very much to this battle. Heal 2 probably would have helped save him for another couple of rounds, but the spells that he was casting were just not doing much. KARY seems to have a pretty high magic resistance stat. There wasn't really much going on with Zonk anyway. He was just kind of an extra target to soak up some attacks, so I wish that Heal 2 would have landed. Could have kept him alive to be kind of a meats shield a little bit for my other characters. So all I have left really is just my a couple of Heal 1 spells. And with the Cleric there, with T-Hawk, I would have liked to have held on to that Cure 3 to use on Esper, but I decided to use it on himself because, if T-Hawk gets taken out, then that Cure 3 spell is going to be wasted anyway. And with Esper up there at near full hit points, I thought that was the best choice. Now I'm going to use the Bind Ring actually on KARY because that's going to reduce KARY's Evasion and increase the chance that Esper gets 2 hits every round. And that's kind of critical because I need to land all the hits I can. And there just really isn't anything left in the tank for poor T-Hawk here, so it's just going to be fight. Now, there really isn't anything else I can do. The Bind Ring could be another one. It's just going to be fighting and doing a little bit of piddly damage in addition. There's a nice hit. 6 hits, good damage. So we're kind of in the final phase now. One or the other of us is going to lose this battle of attrition. It's going to be our party or it's going to be KARY. The crit is nice from T-Hawk, although still pretty piddly damage. We're actually going to use heal 1 to see how much we can get back there. It's not a whole lot, and so it's going to be up to T-Hawk in this round. And with that critical hit, 51 damage, T-Hawk does take out KARY. So we have our 2 defensive characters taking us through this battle. And so this hack is very well designed in that this defensive party could really sandbag and protect against what was a long, drawn-out fight with the Fiend of Fire. So without the help of our Viking, we were able to make it. There's that animation that we haven't seen on the FCEUX emulator. We do have it here on the Open EMU over here in Macworld. And now we can warp out and end what is a thrilling finish of the Gurgu Volcano. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you know someone who you think would be interested in seeing a cool ROM hack of a cool old game like this, be sure to share it with them. Get in touch with me on Twitter where I am active_ATE. And of course, leave me a comment if you have a thought on this one. I always love to hear from you. Join me next time for more Final Fantasy Ultra Champion Edition.